Hello, Uganda. Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hotseat on 933 KFM. I welcome you, our listeners, across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Amara. Tonight, we want to celebrate the workers because just tomorrow is May 1st, and that's International Labor Day. So the people who toil and work hard for Uganda, we want to celebrate them. But we also want to listen to the challenges they face. We're celebrating the worker. We're celebrating you and I. And my guests joining me online, I have Sahabat Luswata from the Uganda Medical Association. Habat, can you hear me?
Yes, Patrick, I can hear you very well.
All right, thank you so much. In the studio, I'm also joined by Abdallah Kayonde, CEO, Migrant Workers Voice. Thank you so much for joining us, Abdallah. How are you, sir?
Welcome. Greetings to the listeners.
Okay, let me begin with you from the Uganda Medical Association, Habat. Tomorrow, we are celebrating the Ugandan worker. How is it like from your corner in the medical profession?
Thank you, Patrick, and good evening once again. I think we have a few gains as doctors or health workers in Uganda, which we can celebrate on this day, though we also still have some challenges. But I can talk about, in summary, a few gains we have got. In the last few months, we have been able to get promotions for a number of health workers at different levels through the adverts from the different hospitals, and this has been very good for the health workers who have been stagnating in the same position for very many years. We have also seen some of external adverts which have come out, which are helping to solve the problem of unemployment, and we expect more to be coming according to communication from the Ministry of Public Service, and this will be very good. Some of the challenges we have, which we think should be fixed, one of them is the employment of doctors at health center series, and this one is supposed to be one of the things which is supposed to help us to solve the problem of unemployment among the juniors, the medical officers, but also to increase access of health service delivery to Ugandans in the periphery or in the villages who have been suffering because of lacking this expert kind of services. From the doctors. We have received a directive which has been on for like 2 to 3 years now from the president to have doctors in the different sub-counties, mainly to solve the problem of mothers who are dying during delivery, sometimes because they are lacking this kind of technical services for the doctors. But this has not been implemented, and we are pushing for meetings with Parliament, the Health Committee, to ensure that at least government can appropriate money, particularly to employ doctors in these sub-counties.
Okay, now, but let me look at the area of the infrastructure on whether you are facilitated enough. There were times when you would go to a health center and perhaps you find this one midwife who's working on about 80 mothers, or maybe one doctor who is working on so many people. But also sometimes that patients can come and all you can give them is the painkiller, but also if you are lucky to give them painkillers. On the side of you to be able to be given the tools to work, how do you stand as we speak?
For now, on the side of human resource, we are not doing well, and this is what the government has been trying to solve, though it has not yet been fully solved. Because the standard, when you look at, for example, doctors, you need one doctor to serve 1,000 Ugandans. But currently, what we have is approximately one doctor serving 20,000 Ugandans, which is still very high in terms of human resource. We are not yet doing very well. And patients are still suffering because of that. They wait for a very long time in lines, and sometimes they don't even receive the services. On the side of equipment, some of the health facilities in the towns or in the cities like Mulago, Chirudu, they have been able to receive some of the equipment like MRI, which are basic equipment in other countries. So for us, we're just picking up now. I think we got an MRI machine in Mulago recently. But many of the regional referral hospitals do not have this kind of machine, including the CT scan Basically, in terms of equipment, I should say generally we are still doing badly.
Okay.
And this also takes into account the drugs. This is why we still have very many private pharmacies around many of our government facilities.
All right. If you can hold it there, Mr. Luswata, I want to come back into the studio where I have Abdullah Kayon, the CEO, Migrant Workers Voice. Abdullah, tomorrow we are celebrating Workers' Day. We have so many Ugandan young men and women in the Middle East and other parts of the world. And actually, when you look at the remittances, the money that comes to the Ugandan economy, those guys are working hard. And the impact can be felt in this country. How do we celebrate tomorrow?
As migrant workers, we actually see tomorrow as a day we should loud up our voices a bit higher so that the challenges we are going through, which are enormous, get to be heard. We expect that the ministry, the line ministry, that is Minister of Gender, gets to take this day not only to thank us for the contribution we are making to the country as workers who migrate, but also to think about the mitigation of our challenges, especially applying the proactive measures in a sense that if government is not yet ready to actually employ all of us here and put whatever standards, as you've heard the doctors saying, to make sure that even the very doctors and other nurses are comfortable here. The fact that things are not the best home, migration becomes a default.
But migration is all over the world. Canadians are going to Australia, Australians are going to United States, in Britain the same thing. What do you want government to do in an event that somebody wants to migrate to go and work in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Oman? Do you really think there's going to be capacity to have a bilateral understanding with the government of Kuwait, but on top of that also have Uganda present in Kuwait, wherever this Ugandan individual is going to work? Is that practically possible?
It may not be practically possible if government does not directly benefit from the business. For instance, people who migrate from all over the world, from different origins and destinations, they may not be having such arrangements as Uganda has, formal business arrangements of labor externalization, where they directly charge people per head. So our calling is that if there is a benefit government gets directly from us, directly, such as, licensing these companies, directly calling on Ugandans who are unemployed to come, be put on job orders, deployed and charged per job orders, that in a sense means that we cannot stop complaining to government.
Abdullah, you're not going to be a very popular person among your people. So you want the people who are going to hustle in Saudi Arabia to also be able to pay the government of Uganda that has failed to give them employment in their own country to pay to the government coffers so that they can go and hustle in Saudi Arabia. Is that what you're talking about?
No, what I'm trying to say, that government has actually charged these Ugandans by default, even without them knowing. Are you aware that Ugandans who are exported or externalized within this arrangement are charged per head $30 from each job order? So if there is that charge and even other taxes taxed on to this Ugandan who says, I want to leave to go somewhere, that means this Ugandan has given in a lot. On top of that, is going to work, bring back the salary home. So what are we calling for as a voice? Can we look at the incentives that can enable this Ugandan who can inevitably, who cannot avoid going to this destination? Can he be protected? Can our welfare be thought or brought on table to be discussed? Can we have policies on a special packages for Ugandan migrant workers who leave this country? Can we look at insurance? They are not insured. To have that mutual benefit, a win-win situation, not an exploitative kind of business.
So what are you expecting? For example, a Ugandan worker has left Kampala, he's living in Jordan, in Oman, what Jordan? What do you really want to happen? Like like they should be on a medical insurance in Jordan, or what exactly?
Oh, sure. Like here, if you're going to formally employ someone, it is expected to give this kind of incentive. It is not actually proper to just employ someone and deprive her or him of such welfare rights. So somebody who goes to Jordan, we expect that government should bargain in its bilaterals for us to have these arrangements, these provisions properly put into.
You're also talking about countries that have not been able to give their own people medical insurance. What you're talking about is really an utopian.
No, it's not utopia. It's not utopia. You cannot say that the countries where Uganda is externalizing are actually below. They lack these insurance packages. For instance, Saudi Arabia, the known destination. All nationals of Saudi Arabia are insured. And then, if they have those insurance schemes for their nationals, is it wrong for us to advocate for our own who are leaving Uganda?
Okay, that's a big question. Let me come back to you, Mr. Luswata. I know for quite some time Ugandan doctors were going into looking for greener pastures in South Sudan, in Namibia, in Botswana, in Rwanda, in South Africa. Is it still the case?
Yes, it is still the case, and it is no longer a secret. Now even the government openly knows about this kind of migration. Right now, we are working on a memorandum of understanding with the government of Rwanda through their Ministry of Health. We want to sign a memorandum of understanding whereby we can share these professionals, the health professionals between Uganda and Rwanda. Since for now the government is recruiting but cannot take up every health worker we currently have in Uganda, we shall be signing that MOU with Ministry of Health of Rwanda, and it will be witnessed by the Uganda Export Promotions Board, which is a government entity. So it is open, and the government is aware about it. We have also had meetings and discussions with the association, the Royal College of Physicians of UK. They have also been looking for physicians to go and work for them for at least 2 years, then they return, and then another group can go and work for them, because their population is mainly of very old people, including the doctors who are working there, and they can no longer serve their population. So Ugandans are taking up these opportunities. They are being trained on what is required for them to go and work in the United Kingdom. And there is a project which is willing to facilitate their visa and the transport to actually go to work in the UK. And we have been open to government on this, and it has been allowed. So yes, doctors in Uganda are still migrating and going to these other countries, as the government is also trying to recruit them into the government system to solve the problem of unemployment.
The Ugandan medical school has always been the envy of the world. Even in other parts of the world, a Ugandan medical doctor is sought after because they are thought to be highly skilled. But we seem to be basking in the glory of the past. Is it still the case that the Ugandan doctor will still get the same respect like it was 30, 40 years back?
We have been having some challenges which came with the opening of the private medical schools in Uganda. Ideally, they are supposed to be regulated by the National Council of Higher Education, working with the Uganda Medical and Dental Practitioners Council. So in the recent past, there have been some kind of disagreement or things have not been working well, and we have seen some kind of exchange between Uganda Medical and Dental Practitioners Council, the National Council of Higher Education, whereby the council recommends that the university need certain things in place for them to be able to train doctors and other health workers. And then you realize that the National Council of Education has not respected these kind of recommendations, and they have opened up medical schools without the final recommendation from the council. And this has caused us a problem. The council has openly come out in public and has complained about this issue. So true, the quality of our doctors somehow has gone down, and we have a job to do, and we have to be very intentional as a government to ensure that National Council for Education the Uganda Medical Dental Practitioners Council, and other associations will ensure that this quality is maintained and ensure that all training medical schools have all the requirements they need. Otherwise, we are headed for a disaster.
Mr. Luswata from the Uganda Medical Association, I want to thank you so much for the time you have given us. I want to wish you a happy Labor Day in advance. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Patrick Kamara.
All right, we're going to take a break and we shall come back and stay with Abdallah Kayonde, but also we shall be joined by Simon Kaheru from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. We'll be right back.
The hottest debate on all relevant topics, live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat. Hot Seat. Hear the real story behind the story. Coming right at you. Only on 933 KFM.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara, and online we are joined by Simon Kaheru from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. Simon, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening, and good evening, Dr. Studio.
Okay, we have Abdallah Kayonde, CEO, Migrant Workers
Abdallah.
Voice. Yes, Abdallah.
Yes.
Okay, so
let's listen to the doctor speak.
Oh, yes, earlier we had Dr. Luswata. Yes, you from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. How from an East African Business Council, you have many hats, but how is the situation like for the Ugandan worker in 2024?
Patrick, I won't speak for just Coca-Cola because that's a small microcosm of your Ugandan worker. But let's think about all our factory workers or people in the manufacturing sector. The situation is good, first of all, because we are employed. Okay, let's start there. The fact that we have jobs to do is always one that we celebrate, and we always encourage our colleagues to take it seriously, because we could easily exist in a situation where we don't have these factories. We've been here before. We don't have employment, and therefore we can't look after our people. For us, all of us across the board, we celebrate Labor Day because of that opportunity, but we celebrate it against a theme, a specific theme that always speaks to the things that we want our employers to pay attention to for our good. This other theme is focused more on safety at the workplace, which is also great because World Safety Day was just the other day. But we find it more important because back in the day when factories had just begun, the issue of safety was not top of the shelf for employers. Today, it's the first thing you report on in serious companies. How safe are our workers? Have we got zero fatalities? Have we got zero injuries? Have we put in place mechanisms for our workers to know when they leave their homes, they can tell their families comfortably, we are coming back. We're not just bringing you money, but we are coming back. So that tomorrow, you're sure that we'll go back to work and return again. And that's very, very crucial. We're even taking it a notch higher, and I hope next year's team will include this, where we say how much safer is the workplace for individuals that need extra protection and cover, like persons with disabilities. Because once we cover that, then we can actually include them more into employment, into our factories, retail, you name it. So there's a lot around workers' rights, their situation that we still need to address.
Okay.
But we are happy.
All right,
with the progress made so far.
Let me come back to the studio here with Abdallah. The national celebrations, I think, will be taking place in my home city of Fort Portal. And to be exact, actually, even at my former school, St. Leo's College, Chegobe. And I can imagine the president will be there. Abdallah, what would you want the head of state to address on Workers' Day like tomorrow?
I would like to hear the president coming out boldly on the issues of minimum wage. Yes, they sent a bill to him and he didn't assent to it. But really, I know he's trying to promote industrialization here, bringing investors and all that at the cost of Ugandans suffering low wages. So I'm really dying to hear that, because it is one push factor that is pushing us to go and suffer the other side. It is one push factor that is pushing all the
Why are you looking
brains.
at it from the element of negativity
Not
to go and
negativity.
suffer? Because majority of Ugandans have gone out, including the Middle East, have made their lives better.
East, West, home is the best. I want to assert it that nobody feels comfortable actually to to move that side, to leave borders or even cross from any other, even if you were internal migrant here. I don't think you would prefer to come to Kampala if Masindi was the best. But you were forced somehow, somewhere to come and stay in Kampala, isolate yourself from the family and come here. Now, migration becoming a safety net for such vulnerable people. I would wish the president to begin on such a day to think about such a vital factor as minimum wage, and also look into the issues of job creation here by involving even when they're talking of job creation, how do you empower the nationals to actually start up things that are going to be sold within the local market, or even you can sell internationally, but how do you help them, those who start up here, those who may innovate on their own? How do you help them to actually market and sell whatever they have without competing with the investor you are bringing here? These are some of the things I would wish to hear the president articulating, guiding us. What are the intentions for him to, yes, he's trying to bring in, to encourage investors here. It's fine. We may want that for an investment. But the issue of them or opening the market and leaving the nationals suffer, the effect of mixing up and competing with the other people who come in and they have money, they produce almost the same thing, they compete with the locals. All that is something I would like to hear about, and these are factors that are pushing some of us who call ourselves migrant workers.
Okay, let me come back to you, Simon Kahero. I would also want to hear your voice on the issue of a minimum wage, because really we also want to earn a decent salary. Somebody needs to earn some money to be able, off your money, to have something to eat, to have something to invest, but also have something to save. In some cases, it is not even enough to eat.
Yeah, but Patrick, our economy is structured in such a way that you have a very, very large informal sector which thrives. The informal sector thrives because of the structure of our society. And so to actually institute a minimum wage to introduce a minimum wage that you can implement and enforce and respect, even that workers would respect, there are many other things that need to be put into place. I'll tell you, for instance, that we all of us complain in our day-to-day lives, think micro, about a certain cadre of workers who you cannot rely upon to deliver work on time, to the right quality. These are artisans, for instance. Some of them are even people blue-collar level. And the reason is, many times they can just find something better to do for that day, something that will earn them more money that day than what you're paying them per month. But the economy does not allow you. Haji, sorry, I'm calling you Haji because Abdallah Kayonde. Yeah, you know how we just immediately send you to Mecca and back. Abdallah there mentioned he mentioned that cross between competition between an investor and the retailer and all that. All those things, that informality makes it difficult for us to put up a set of rules that says, now you are going to work for me for this number of hours, and therefore you will deliver this amount of work whose value I will be able to extract, and therefore pay you this rate for the next 2 years, which is the length of my business plan, for instance. Because we don't have that, it's actually difficult to say this is the minimum wage that you must apply for jobs A to M or N. Now, until we've moved more into formality, we will still continue to talk about a minimum wage without actually implementing it. And I feel sorry for Ugandans, because when something like EFRIS comes up, we will challenge it. Some parts of it may be questionable, but the reality is, government of Uganda is trying to formalize the economy. Formalize it so that we operate in a way that will allow us to now introduce all these other niceties that we see in what we call developed countries. We're starting from the middle. And because we're starting from the middle, it will always be difficult to put these things into place.
All right.
That said, however, wait, Patrick, that said, the business community, people who are sensible and serious, they themselves need to take into account that they must pay full value for work that is done respectfully, and we must be the ones to build capacity. So whether it's your maid or your carpenter or your plumber or your accountant, try to ensure that you pay them the right value so that they can now deliver the work to the level that you require to maintain your business sustainably, and therefore you will be actually running a minimum wage system that creates professionalism and allows formality to be introduced easier across the board.
Okay, thank you, Simon. But let me come back to you, Abdullah. Now, like the domestic worker, do you really think they have the capacity, even if a minimum wage law is passed, to actually negotiate? If the government says you cannot pay anyone below 200,000, and a domestic worker with an equal power relation in the village who is just looking at that 80,000 or 50 that they're going to pay, can they have that voice really? Do you think it is practically possible for it to be implemented, Abdullah?
Well, Mr. Patrick, that also depends on the arrangement and the policies in place. If these so-called domestic workers have been given a good policy that protects them, there's no way you can say they cannot be aligned to that, because they can be imparted skills also to suit a certain level of being paid. And besides that, them being informal as they are, you cannot go on to continue exploiting them or advantaging on them while you say they are informal. But you cannot avoid to go sign bilaterals or letting them, I have seen some programs here where government is giving money to informals. Are they not aware that they are informal? They can even waste that money. Why are they giving them this money? If there is a formality, there are some good policies that allow such people in that category to also have a say. Policies like what?
You're a voice majorly for the migrant workers.
Yes.
On the aspect of minimum wage, the migrant workers, where would you put it and how would it be implemented?
It would be implemented at the level of, it begins from the bilateral agreements and then the policies or a regulation. Once those don't mention it, then we have no law that may be guide to that. And that's where we are looking at the gaps in actually signing these bilaterals, where the workers are excluded, no representation. I mean, you find only government and a few others from the Attorney General's office who decide what they want without even consultation. So the workers end up being almost sold and left at the mercy of those who receive them in destination countries. So what are we calling for is the inclusion and recognition of the stakeholdership of the migrant, the Ugandan migrant worker in all processes. Regardless, we have understood the status quo may push us and migration becomes a safety net, then we agree to go. Then, if we had to go, why are we excluded from decision making? Why are we not told the truth? Why are we not given a chance to to select a salary? Why do you choose a salary for us? Okay, why don't you? Why is it why is it you take us in countries which have minimum wage standards, but for you here, you don't even want to mention it in your bilateral to show you even cut it from what they have decided the other side. You want to lower it in order to create a better supply market for your recruiters, because that has been done.
Okay, let me come back to Simon, and I'm going to be asking on the issues of the values at work, the skills at work, the distance work of the Ugandan worker, because it has been said that we don't only have an unemployment problem in Uganda, but also quite a number of the Ugandan worker today or graduate today is unemployable. We seem to have a big problem.
Yes, we do, but look, we've spoken about that problem for a long time, and hence the emergence of all these programs we call skilling Uganda, skilling this, competency building. Yesterday, in one of the UK newspapers, a gentleman called John Cleese, so many of you who are my age might know of him. He ran a comedy program back in the 70s, 80s called 40 Towers. And one of the things he said is, when he was growing up, he's now, I believe, in his 80s, but when he was being raised, his father, who dropped out of high school and worked a mid-level job, never ever misspelled a single word in the letters he wrote. His English was perfect. He paid attention to the grammar lesson that he had been taught as a young child. And what John Cleese is talking about is the standards that society lived by back then do not exist anymore. The problem is not just here. You hear people talking about this across many of the countries in this globe. Ours, of course, is more severe for us because it affects us directly, us, you and I. And we do need to address it here, but we are trying, I should say, to address it, not as government, but as a community, by taking people in and giving them training in the different companies where we employ them. Unfortunately, it cannot be done there. It's got to start from our homes and has got to be supported very deliberately by our government. Because our government is one that determines the education curriculum, decides how pupils and students should be taught, what skills they should be given. Then from there, it's the private sector that puts in the money to provide that last bit of apprenticeship, which is also a part of training. And we do it because we want the benefits. The benefits are labor is one of the factors of production. It has to be correct so that I don't lose my capital and all the other factors of production. We have not yet gotten that formula right, and it's all of us together, all of us. And the fact of the matter is, when we talk about corruption in this country, we're not talking about only government corruption. No, we're talking about corruption across the board because it keeps us mediocre and keeps us going backward every single day.
All right. Simon Kaheru from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa, I want to thank you, as usual, for adding value to this platform. And for you, for now, we say Kwaheri.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Abdallah. Happy Labor Day, everybody.
Okay, thank you. That was Simon Kaheru from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. We're still with you, Abdallah Kayonde. We're going to take a break, and the hot seat will be right back.
KFM's Hot Seat. It's hot, it's live, provocative, and digs deep into the issues.
33 KFM.
The hottest debate on all relevant topics, live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat covers all the relevant topics every weekday, 7 to 8 p.m.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amara. Earlier we had on this show Herbert Luswata from the Uganda Medical Association. We're also joined after that by Simon Kaheru from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. And in the studio, I have Mr. Abdallah Kayonde. We are now joined online by Catherine Bitarakwate, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Service. Good evening, Catherine. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Patrick.
We are so happy to hear you, especially on the eve of International Labour Day. And for you, really, what I would want to hear is your message to the public servants as they go to celebrate the day tomorrow, the medical workers, and the teachers usually have had issues, including industrial action. What do you tell them, Madam PS?
On this auspicious occasion of the celebration of the International Labour Day, I'd like to congratulate all of us, civil servants who have been working for the last 365 days and who have really provided services to the nation. Of course, there are some wins. There are some who have been enhanced. There are others who are still waiting. But so what I'd like to advise all of us is to be patient, to keep resilient, and to keep serving the nation. And to those who have specifically made commitments that with enhancements and the reduction on the social pressures that we all have, they are going to deliver more prompt and efficient services, we are still waiting. We're waiting for that promise to be fulfilled as it was made during the negotiations. Otherwise, I'm wishing all the civil servants in Uganda a happy Labor Day and an additional fruitful and prosperous year ahead.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. But what do you make of the perennial complaints from the Ugandan worker, especially the teacher and the medical worker? Even before you came on air, we had Mr. Luswata from the Uganda Medical Association. They also talk sometimes of when they are not only poorly paid, but also sometimes they are poorly facilitated to do their job, and some of these are very crucial, life-saving kind of assignments they do.
True, and as we look forward to the next period of work, government is cognizant of those needs, that they have to be facilitated, they have to be equipped, and it is working towards that.
There has been a clamor, Madam PS, for Ugandans to have the minimum wage. They think that a decent salary is good enough. Where a Ugandan worker can, off their salary, can have something to eat, they can have something to save, and maybe can have something to invest. Your take?
That is the desire of all of us, and it is work in progress. That is why some have achieved it and others haven't. And the roadmap towards salary enhancement and providing a living wage for all our civil servants, we are looking at the COLA, cost of living adjustment. And when we reach that point, I think all of us will be satisfied. It is work in progress. We know the international effect on our economy and so many other factors. But it is work in progress, and we are in discussions with Ministry of Finance over who comes on next and what the economy can afford, given the other pressing needs that are in the House.
As a PS, I would want to know, because there have been complaints that we don't only have an employment problem in Uganda, but that even our graduates nowadays are more or less unemployable. You are in the process of receiving new workers coming on board. How do you assess the competence in terms of their skills to be able to do the job?
That is a long explanation, which I cannot give right now. But of course, when we talk about merit, merit is merit. And where there are given measures, aptitude tests, and competence tests that are applied, you get the best. So and for any population, there is a standard curve. There are some who are below, there are some who are in the middle, and there are others who are in the top range. So it depends on what we are looking for. If we use standards that are mixed or use standards based on other parameters, then we will not get the results that we would like to get.
In the studio with me here, I have Mr. Abdallah Kayonde. Abdallah Kayonde is the CEO for Migrant Workers Voice. And Abdallah, let me give you an opportunity to directly talk to the PS Minister of Public Service, Catherine Bitarakwati, just in case you have a question.
Good evening, Madam PS.
Good evening, sir.
I really congratulate you for having reached this day. But yes, I have liked your articulation. You are really positive towards the minimum wage, as I mentioned. But to me, my concern is government should not be actually, as a technical person in that ministry, you should be aware of the danger or of I will call it the enemy of AI in place.
Artificial intelligence.
Yes, as you try to bite, to do whatever you can to see that people get employed, and don't forget, globalization is here, artificial intelligence is here. So the youth and the people you're trying to employ, the confusion you see, that doesn't happen without the effect of the trends.
Is the technology becoming a problem to the Ugandan worker?
So
are we seeing the Ugandan worker being replaced because it's just on a supersonic speed? Do you look at it as a problem or probably as a stepping stone?
Technology is not a problem for the Ugandan worker, most especially in the civil service, because we still have a digital divide. Not all our population is at the same level of exposure to how for the technology. That's okay. And for those who are savvy, and which are not too many of them, it's not a very big population that is very IT savvy and are moving into the first world. they don't have an impact, especially on the civil service at large. And I'm being specific about the civil service. I am not talking about the entire labor force. In the civil service, technology is not taking over our jobs. It is an enabler. We have a very fast-growing population. And we also have a very big civil service, which is over 400,000. And what technology is doing is helping us manage our human resources. Without having IT managing the payroll, the pension, the data, and various services, we would actually be inefficient. But we're trying to promote it, to quicken our services, to reach the hard-to-reach areas, and have as many of our clients accessing this. Fortunately, we are still in a cultural setup that allows for human interface. That even where you find someone who is not IT savvy or who doesn't know how to use the technology, there'll always be someone at hand to help you navigate.
Okay.
Not only in internet cafes, but also at circles, at mobile money outlets, agent banking. They will help you navigate. So we don't have a problem.
Okay. As PS, Minister of Public Service, what is your feeling? The fact that more than 400,000 or maybe 500,000 are going to graduate every year with certificates, diplomas, and degrees, but only maybe about 90,000 can find jobs. That is a time bomb for Uganda, isn't it?
You may say so, depending on what we are doing about it, but government right now is promoting industrialization, skilling, and also export of labor.
Okay. And the export.
To deal with that.
And the export of labor is where Mr. Kayonde here is an expert, because he speaks for the migrant worker, and he thinks the migrant worker has actually been neglected.
That I would leave for the Ministry of Gender and Labor, because they deal directly with it. But I was speaking generally about the solutions that government is providing for us now.
How about the complaints we hear when it comes to public service delivery that is ineffective? You will hear here and there allegations of abuse and corruption in public offices, absenteeism of teachers and doctors. And sometimes, by the way, the inspectorate in the Ministry of Education, the inspectorate division seems to be wobbly. Your take, Catherine.
I wouldn't judge it as wobbly, but I know that we are working on improving on the performance management system, but at the same time also piloting and instituting the biometric systems where the registration of attendance is done by fingerprint and face recognition, and through the human capital management system and the teacher management information system. These are interlinked, such that we can have real-time reports of who is attending and who is not.
Okay, let me come back in the studio as you stand by. Abdallah Kayonde, I can imagine most Ugandans are going out to look for greener pastures because they can't find employment here. Isn't that the case?
Correct.
What would you think government should be able to do to absorb these hundreds of thousands of Ugandans who are getting out of our institutions of education?
Well, first and foremost, we do not have a problem with an alternative of migration or labor migration. When government embraced it, it gave it a regulation, the first one of 2005. It showed us a good indicator that maybe they have got an alternative for where they cannot provide. But unfortunately, you find that even after trying to come up with such policies, they do not try to mean that business. You ask me how. when the tendency of continuing to send off and exciting Ugandans, even those who have the little they can survive on here, have been excited in that line to leave this country to only end up in the hands of slave masters, and government has not put enough mechanisms in place to
you say you are the voice of the migrant worker. I mean, how are they prepared before they leave for the cultural shock, for the technology, for the language? They need to be prepared. Sometimes they go there. Somebody lives in Akasongola, they have never seen, maybe technology. And there they land in Riyadh, in Jeddah, and everything is different. Have you prepared them?
True, that has been the song from day one when we came out and advocated calling for these trainings and the orientations before workers leave. And indeed, the government came up with such programs of training. But you ask me, are they effective? Or they came up with their own arrangement after our proposal? They came up with a different arrangement which teaches actually an ideal picture and doesn't bring out the real stuff on ground.
Okay.
Something that affects the migrants.
Let me go back to Catherine Bitarakwate, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Service, and I'll be asking for you to give us your concluding remark in regard to on this Labor Day Eve.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay. My concluding remark is that as Ugandans, we need to embrace innovation. We need to support government, especially in all the programs it is putting out to enable people to get into the money economy for those who are not, to enable us to compete regionally and internationally. So the youth need to look towards using their academic skills to create jobs and use the resources that we have, as well as compete with the regional and international markets. Thank you.
Catherine Bitarakwate, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Public Service, I want to thank you so much for having given us your time, for having added value to this platform, and of course for us to have the PS is not something very we can easily get, so we're grateful for the time.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That was Catherine Bitarakwate. And so what's going to be your concluding remark, Abdallah?
To me, I have two messages to the audience that is listening in. First, one goes to the migrant workers. We urge the solidarity of migrant workers that denied protection. Our struggle for justice continues. In that sense, where we are being denied rights, we are denied whatever we may be seeking for, even when we are determined to go. We will not be silenced until our rights are respected. And the time is now for us to start and seek for this change on this Labor Day. Then the message to government, we want to tell government that we are not disabled labor. We are not disposable labor. We are human beings deserving of dignity and rights. The international community also must know that we face off challenges wherever we are destined, which is our right. Therefore, it must come up and also watch whatever outcries we are putting out. And they try to also galvanize and compel states to observe our rights wherever we go. Because there are those who come to Uganda and suffer from here. And there are those who move out of Uganda. So as a voice, we really equally consider both outcries and call on the international community to look into that. And also, we also call upon the sending states of migrants, especially from the global south, the developing states to other states, to consider putting up social welfare arrangements, policies that enable to give their nationals who actually return home and get a hard landing.
All right.
It is one way to create soft landing if you create these programs and initiate them right from your countries of origin, such that those who go really have appetite to come back and they get attracted to continue going to work and they bring in remittances for you.
Abdallah,
I wish you a happy Labor Day.
Abdallah Kayonde, CEO, Migrant Workers Voice, thank you so much. Catherine Betarakwate, Permanent Secretary, Minister of Public Service, thank you. Simon Kahiru from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa, we thank you. And earlier we also had Habatulu Suwata from Uganda Medical Association. We also thank him. But most of all, you the listener, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. Good night and God bless Uganda.
KFM's Hot Seat. It's hot, it's live, provocative, and digs deep into the issues.